What is going on, guys? Duranathel here, and today I'm going to be bringing you a post-February ban list Exosister deck, which does include the new cards from this Burst Protocol, I believe it was called. This is what I used for the pre-release. People actually managed to pull some of the cards. I was playing 3 of these, and I think 3 just felt too much, but I'll get into that in a moment. I'm just going to do like a little bit of discussion around how I feel where the deck is and what it's doing, what I played, what I've changed since then. Usually we would go straight in, and since it's an Exosister deck, we talk about all the Exosister monsters, but Ichiki Sayori Hime is a 3-of that just makes this deck work. It is a spirit, so it does bounce back to your hand if you do normal summon it that turn, or you flip it face up. Not that you'll ever be flipping it face up, but when you summon it, you can search for level 4 light or dark monster with 800 attack or defense, and then add it to your hand. And if you control a monster that has 800 attack or defense, you can normal summon this. So if you control an Exosister, you can summon this, search for Martha, and, you know, make Caspatel to add something else to your hand, or you go for the new one, the Carmel, to be able to set, and then you've got the Martha in your hand because you searched it from Ichiki. Feels like this just makes it work. One thing to note is you cannot search Sakatama, but you can search Aratama, and Aratama as a normal summon is full combo because it also searches for a spirit monster to add from your deck to your hand. So I think going forward, maybe what I would do is take out the Sakatamas and maybe just play, say, like 3 of this and 2 Aratama. But Sakatama's kind of nice as a bit of an extender if you have it just on its own and 1 Exosister, because you can normal the Exosister and then with Sakatama effect normal summon itself, but you can't search for it. So probably going forward play 2 Aratama, because Aratama searches Ichiki and Ichiki searches Aratama. Sakatama just doesn't do anything extra, it just summons itself. So yeah, 3 Ichiki and probably 2 Aratama rather than 1 Aratama, 1 Sakatama. Into the Exosister stuff. 3 Martha, always play 3 Martha, she just makes the deck work. She's she's the best card in the deck, but I feel like sometimes she's also the worst card in the deck now. She's the best card because she summons herself, summons Ellis, and just allows you to keep going. Like summoning 1 from hand, 1 from deck, and not using up your normal summon is great. But she locks you into Exosisters for the turn. It's not after, it is just the turn. So you can't play other, like, rank 4s, you can't then link off. That's why it works with the spirits, because the spirits normal summon themselves. Well, yeah, one thing to keep in mind, Martha, if you use Martha effect, you can only special summon Exosister monsters for the rest of the turn. She is also the only Exosister that has the effect of either player moving a card from grave. She can Xyz using herself you control. All of the other Exosister monsters need your opponent to move something from grave. So usually you would use Martha effect to summon the Ellis from deck. You'd normal summon another Exosister. Then you would use those 2 to go into your Exosister Xyz and keep Martha on the board. Because if you could go into Mikais and your opponent did hand trap you earlier, you can use the Mikais effect to banish a card from their grave, and then use Martha effect to Xyz just her. It kind of stops you from needing that extra monster, but it locks you into just Exosisters, so you can't play other engines. And if you do play other engines, like you can see me playing in the side, you then have to make the choice, do I play Exosister or do I play this engine? It just makes it a bit awkward. But her plus any monster is full Exosister board. Sometimes just her can be full Exosister board because of the mention of Mikais to banish a hand trap that your opponent's played. So she's the best card in the deck, but at times I also found she was the worst card in the deck. Ellis. If you could play 6 of these, I think you'd play 6. If you could play 9, maybe you'd play 9. I definitely feel like you'd play 6. So the way that the Exosisters work is they kind of partner with each other. So Ellis works with Stella, Sophia works with Irene. I'll go over the rest of them in a moment. But for some odd reason, Martha also works with Ellis. It's almost like they needed to print 2 more Exosister monsters and make Martha work with something else. Ratios are a bit difficult because of that, but you always play 3 Martha, you always play 3 Ellis, and then the rest of the Exosister monsters is kind of down to like personal preference. I kind of feel like if they had printed another card to partner with Martha, you probably wouldn't play Irene and Sophie, which, I don't know. I kind of feel like the next step that the Exosisters needs now is something to partner with Martha, so that you don't have to use all of your Ellis on the first turn. If you could play 6, you could play 6. So if you control an Exosister, you special summon her. If it's Stella that you control, you gain 800. And then, as mentioned, as the same as all the other Exosisters, if your opponent moves a card from the graveyard, you can Xyz using just her as material. We played 2 Stella. I was flitting around playing 2 or 3 of Stella. Maybe with the new spell card, I could probably bump this back up to 3. But it's, what cards do you take out? What cards do you move around? I need to figure everything out with this. But this is just kind of a thought process at the moment. So yeah, Stella partners with Ellis. During your main phase, you can special summon an Exo from your hand. If you control Ellis, you gain 800. You don't have to special Ellis, but if you do, you gain 800. I played 2 Sophia. If you control another Exosister, you can draw a card. So typically what you do is Martha effect, summon Ellis, normal summon Sophia, draw a card from Sophia, make Caspatel, search the other Ellis, special summon the Ellis, make either Carmel or Mikais, depending on what you want to do, Mikais to add or Carmel to set, make Magnifica. Seems to be the typical kind of linear process that the deck goes through. But Sophia's great because you just draw a card. But because we're playing Sophia, we have to play 1 Irene. If I didn't have to play Irene, I wouldn't. But because of the way that the Exosisters work and they need the partnership, you need Irene to be able to gain extra advantage with Sophia through either Pax or Vadis. Irene is really, really, really bad. And you have absolutely no reason ever to play more than one of her. You have every reason to not play her, but you have to because she works with Ellis, which is why I'm tempted to play this at 41 and just have the Irene as like the one kind of odd card. You place an Exosister card from your hand to the bottom of the deck as cost, and then you draw a card. Because you're placing it down as cost, if your opponent ashes you, you just... you've normal summoned a really bad Exosister and then put a card to the bottom of your deck. Yeah, okay, it uses your opponent's Ash, but you're kind of stuffed. So, you have to play the 1 Irene, but you don't want to. If you control Sophia, with Irene you gain 800. If you control Irene and use Sophia's effect, you gain 800. The reason you're gaining 800 is because Pax, you pay 800, and you add an Exosister card from your deck to your hand, and if you've added a monster, you special, and it has the other Exosister name in the graveyard, you can special summon it. Oh, it's on field and in graveyard, sorry. On field or in graveyard. So if you control Ellis and add Stella, you can special the Stella straight away. If Irene is in your graveyard and you add Sophia, you can special summon the Sophia straight away, which is why you have to play the Irene. But being able to search any Exosister card is great. It is a quick play, so you can play around draw by chaining it, but despite the fact that it's a quick play, it specifies during the main phase, which is really annoying. If they got rid of that bit, happy days. But you pay 8 and you search for any Exosister card. You just get whatever it is that you want. I do play the 1 Copper Divum. So neither player can target Exosister monsters that you control with effects of monsters that were special summoned from the graveyard, which is just a nice little protection. Didn't come up, but there is going to be that odd chance where it does come up. So you can only use each effect once per turn. So if you Xyz summon an Exosister monster, you declare a card name, then you negate the activated effects and effects on the field of cards with that original name. You are essentially playing it so that you Xyz and call Nibiru so you don't just lose. But if you Xyz on your opponent's turn, and you know they're playing Branded, you can call Branded Fusion. They now can't activate Branded Fusion. I can't remember the name of it, but there's the Dracotail Fusion card as well. You can just call the Dracotail Fusion card and they can't activate it. And it also stops the effects on board. So if they use, if you've Xy'd, you go to use the effect of, like, Caspatel, they imperm it. You can, with the Carpadivum on board, you can call it imperm, and then because it's the third card in the chain, it stops the imperm and you still get the search. So Carpadivum's great, you play it as like a one-of. Most of the time I found that this is what I was searching, because now you have the new Betrayal. You're adding the monsters from Betrayal. So most of the time with packs you are adding the other spell, or the other trap, and then Carmel was setting the other. So there's a lot of options. This deck now doesn't feel as linear, it doesn't feel as like Corridor, because you've got the option of being able to add quite a lot. Going on to that, I was playing 3 Betrayal. I feel like 3 is too much. So I don't know going forward if I'm going to play 2, or whether I should just stick with it at 3. So when you activate Betrayal, you add 2 Exosister monsters from your deck to your hand and discard 1. They don't have to name each other. So it's not like Vadis, it's not like packs where it's like, oh, if you have the name in the graveyard, it does a little bit extra. It's just you add 2. Every time you will be adding Martha. You just will. And you don't have to discard one of the cards that you've added. So if you're going first, and you've got Betrayal and Fualos in your hand, you add your 2 Exos, just discard the Fualos, because you're not going to be playing it. So they kind of they printed this wrong in the TCG, and they told us to use the OCG rulings at the event. So this part of the effect is fine as it was printed. So you target a face-up monster you control. After that effect's resolved, you normal summon an Exosister monster that is mentioned on that monster. So that's where the partnership work comes into it. So if you control Stella, most of the time you'll want to be adding like Ellis, but then you can use Stellar Effect to summon Ellis. You can use Martha Effect to summon herself if you control an Xyz. It kind of that never came up for me, because the only 2 that you would want to be kind of normal summoning are either Stella or Sophia. And in order to normal summon Stella, you have to control Ellis, which works because you would use Martha Effect, but you would never really be normal summoning Sophia because you just don't ever control Irene. So that never really came up. Maybe I was playing the deck wrong. Genuinely could be that. But the best part of this effect is if a monster is sent to your opponent's graveyard, even during the damage step, your opponent banishes one of them. So if they hand trap you, you can then make them banish the hand trap. Because it's your opponent moving it, it triggers all of your Exosister monsters. In the TCG, they forgot to put opponent, so it says you banish one of them, which means it would only trigger Martha. That probably means that Betrayal is going to get like a reprint in the OTS Common so that it has the correct wording on it, but it was made as a rule that we use the OCG ruling, the OCG printing of the card, so that your opponent does banish it. That did, however, mean that I had to tell everyone that I was coming up against that I was playing Exosister before the game even started, which was frustrating. But people expected me to play it. I haven't played it in a while, but they knew the support was coming out, they knew I liked the deck. I'm playing 2 Returnia and 2 Vadis. Maybe cut down to 1 Vadis. It's okay, but that's where my thought process is. I'm definitely going to keep 2 Returnia. So if all monsters you control are Exosisters, pay 800, target a card, banish it, and then you can either immediately Xyz, or if you've Xyz this turn, you banish a card your opponent controls. That bit is non-targeting, which is great. That effect came up a lot. There's ways that you can like chain link things. There's ways that you can make this work with Vadis, which is pay 800 to special summon 2. But it has to name each other, which is where Irene comes in. So on your turn, if you want to special summon Sophia and Irene, it gives you those like 2 draws if you really need it. But you need to play the Irene. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except Exosister, so this locks you in as well. And you do shuffle them back during the end phase if you don't use them. But if you activate Vadis and then don't use the 2 that you've summoned, like you're playing the deck wrong. I'm sorry. But I was thinking of cutting it down to 1. because paying 800 to special summon 2 feels great, but because the way the deck works, you're most of the time going for Sophia and Irene, because you've used definitely 1, maybe 2 Stella, Ellis, sorry. But then that is my thought process of maybe putting Stella up to 3. This is another reason why if you could play 6 Ellis, you'd play 6 Ellis. I feel like they need to print a card that's like, this card is always treated as Exosister Ellis. I feel like that's the way that they need to get around it. We're playing Pot of Prosperity, mainly because, as you can see from the side deck, I'm playing some of the Magister stuff. So this is 5 that I can already get rid of, and then I usually just get rid of a Magnifica, because if you're using 2 Magnifica, like, you probably should have won summoning just 1. And then on the flip side, like, you could get rid of the, banish the Jabreen, because she's just imperm. Maybe the Caspatel, maybe the new Carmyle. But yeah, you're pretty much getting rid of these 5, and then any Exosister to be able to dig and add 1, which is great. You can't draw for the rest of the turn, so you've got to remember that for Sophia and Irene's effect. But if you're playing Prosperity, like, you're probably looking to be able to play the game, rather than what Sophia and Irene do, just to extend it a little bit more. We play 1 Shifter, because this deck doesn't care about Shifter. I know it says a lot about moving your cards, like, out of the graveyard. But you don't have to worry about your opponent moving cards out of their graveyard if they don't have any cards in the graveyard. And a lot of the time, if your opponent doesn't have a card in the graveyard, like Dracotail for instance, Branded for instance. Funny enough, I came up against 3 Branded and 1 Dracotail. Like, I didn't have fun this weekend. But activating Shifter can just win you the game. Activating Shifter did just win me the game. But if you do Shifter, you got to remember you can't Droll, because Droll specifies graveyard. I played 2. I could have played 3 because it was before the ban list, but I wanted to play 2 just to see ratios and things like that. I think there's a reason that Droll's gone down to 2, and I think you still play 2. People are probably more likely to play it now that it's at 2. But Droll can just end your opponent's turn as well. Play cards that end your opponent's turn is great. 3 Fua, because it's a level 4, so you can, if you need to, you can normal summon it and use it to Xyz. That is an option, but discarding it to be able to draw a card from the deck or extra deck every time your opponent summons from it, pretty good. And then during the end phase, you have to shuffle cards back, equal to cards your opponent controls +6. This either kind of forces your opponent to give you a couple draws, which is what I feel Exosister needs. There's never really a 1 card combo with Exosister. It always seems to be like a 1.5. You need like Martha plus something else. You need like Pax plus something else. It's always just that little bit extra that it needs, and the draw from Fua, if you're going second, can sometimes be that. 3 Imperm. Negate a card your opponent controls. It's not an effect veiler, so it doesn't turn on your opponent's tactics talents or tactics thrust. And it has the added effect of if you set it, it negates the cards in the column, which is fine. We are playing 3 Purge, and playing 3 Purge made me realise that Carmyle is a dark, which is kind of awkward because this turns off Dark Water and Fire. If your opponent controls a card, you can activate this from your hand, and if you activate it from your hand, you cannot activate the effects of Dark Water and Fire for the rest of the duel. Not just the turn, like the duel. Which does turn off your Aratama, and it turns off the Carmyle. However, you don't mind playing it, because most of the time you're probably not going to be going for the Aratama. And if it's just the Aratama in your hand, you just don't Purge. If you search for the Aratama off of Ichiki, you can still normal it, you just don't get the extra search, and then you can go into Caspatel to search for Martha. So Purge doesn't completely shut down the deck, which is good, but it is something to keep in mind, because it does turn off the Zorrower after siding, and it does turn off the Ash, which is why I'm siding the Ash. Most of the time, when we go into the side and I decide to go for the Magister stuff, now that you know what your opponent's playing, and you can use the Conflagrate Calamity to just shut down one type. So, like, against Branded, you pop Whis underneath it, turns off all the fusions, it's a 3/9 that they have to deal with. So I would be taking out the Purge, putting in Ash, so that's like a straight swap. And then, most of the time, I didn't want to press that, most of the time taking out the spirits, just because you're not normaling the spirits to then extend your combos. You're discarding Spoon to search Zorrower, Zorrower to bring back Spoon to make Conflagent, Conflagent to put underneath anything. So you just don't need the extending if you're just trying to completely shut out your opponent. So Purge was sided out most of the time. And the one Called By, because Called By activates Martha, and Called By is just a very, very good card, which is why it's at 1. You stop a hand trap on your turn when you're going first. You can stop a hand trap on your opponent's turn if you're going second, and you can also stop, you know, like, you Call by the Grave a Fallen of Albaz. It's really funny. So that's it for the main deck. As I said, I've gone over like a couple discussion points, but the main thing would be changing Sakatama to Aratama to play 2 of those, adding in a Stella, maybe taking out a Vadis. I know it's just like a one-of, so like the option is there of just taking out the Shifter, because what are the odds of you seeing it? But the games that you do see the Shifter, you just win. And potentially putting Betrayal up to 3. So I know that makes it 41, but you're playing 40 with just a really bad card. So you just ignore this card and make a 40-card deck. Extra deck-wise, I also don't feel like this is optimized because I'm playing the Magister stuff. Maybe it's just not worth playing the Magister stuff, and I focus a bit more on the Exosisters. But you're playing 2 Magnifica because you never need 3. She is just like the boss monster of the deck. So you make her using 2 rank 4 Exosister monsters. It can attack twice, and as a quick effect, you detach 1 to banish a card your opponent controls, and then when your opponent activates a card or an effect, you return an XYZ monster you own attached to this card to the extra deck, then you special summon that monster from the extra deck, using Magnifica as the Xyz material. So it just lets you dodge. It doesn't dodge Nibiru, and it also doesn't dodge the Draco Tail stuff. Because the Draco Tail stuff does everything at once. So the first duel I had against the Draco Tail player, both of us kind of said, like, it feels like Exosister should be really, really good against Draco Tail because it's constantly moving things out of the graveyard. But the problem is, Draco Tail moves something from the graveyard and bounces a monster at the same time. It pops a spell and trap at the same time. So, you chain the Vadis to summon the 2, your opponent moves and does everything, and they just, like, pop the cards that you've summoned. They just return the card that you've summoned before you get the Exosister effect to be able to Xyz. And if you do plan it right, and you say, like, Vadis chain Returnia, chain Vadis, summon the 2, Returnia, banish something, Xyz into Asophiel. They just then pop the Asophiel before it gets its effect. So it feels like it should be really good against Draco Tail, but it isn't, which is frustrating. There are arguments, like, you know, just you could do it all before. During the standby, you could Returnia Vadis. But you need a card on your opponent's board to be able to play the Returnia. So you almost need to wait for them to do something. So you could chain the Returnia to the summon, to the fusion card. You could chain it to the search card, just so then you are Xying and playing a Sophiel straight away. But it feels like you need to do it before your opponent plays a card, and sometimes that can be very, very difficult, which is why Shifter works. But, yeah, so Magnifica's good, but she gets shut down by a singular imperm because you have to chain the effect to switch her out. We got the Mikais, which is the detach 1 to search for an Exosister spell or trap, and as a quick effect, you can target a card your opponent controls or in their graveyard and banish it. So as mentioned previously, you can use the Mikais effect to trigger your Martha. Carmael is the new one. I really like Carmael. I feel like you need to slightly change how you're playing Exosister now because Carmael exists, and because it was the first time I was playing the deck, I hadn't figured out how to change it. So, if Carmael is Xyz summoned, you can set an Exosister spell or trap from your deck, grave, or banish, which is why I think it's now worth going down to 1 Vadis, because she can set the Vadis from your graveyard. When your opponent activates a monster effect or a normal spell or trap, you detach all material, and the activated effect becomes add 1 card from your opponent's graveyard to their hand. So, really frustrating that it specifies normal spell or trap, because you can't do it to a quick play, you can't do it to a field spell. So it has to be to a normal spell or trap. And it's kind of frustrating you have to detach all material, rather than just detaching 1. But I get it. So the effect is your opponent adds a card from your graveyard to your hand, and then because your opponent has moved a card, it activates all your Exosisters. Carmael can be kind of easy to play around, as she can be quite easy to bait out as well, but I feel like you play the deck a little bit differently now because Carmael exists, and because you're more likely to be able to get all the Exosister stuff on board. I don't think you end on Magnifica anymore. But I need to play around and find out what works and what doesn't, and what it is that I should be going for. Another reason why I'm thinking of dropping the Magister stuff is to be able to play, say, 2 Asophiel, 2 Jabreen, maybe 3 Caspatel, 3 Mikais. I feel like maybe you need to focus a lot more on the Exosister stuff now, rather than having like a gimmicky side deck. I feel like Carmael is a lot better than I used her. Just need to figure it out. 2 Caspatel. So if it's Xyz'd using an Exosister monster as material, it says you can activate in the this effect. In the TCG, it is mandatory if you use an Exosister. Neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard for the rest of the turn, which you think is great, but because it's mandatory, if you play it, your opponent Ghost Ogres you. And then you end your turn. But if that doesn't happen, you can detach 1 to add an Exosister monster. We played the 1 Asophiel, as mentioned. I think I'm going to change it to 2. So if it's Xyz summoned using an Exosister monster, neither player can activate card or effects in the graveyard. This is the better one. It's a shame the search isn't on Asophiel, but I get it, because if you could just completely shut down the graveyard and search, it's Dweller, like, in 2 different parts. And Dweller's been banned, which says how powerful things are. But the other effect of Asophiel is to detach 1 to target a monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand. And then we have Jabreen. If you control this card that was Xyz summoned this turn using an Exosister monster, you can target an effect monster your opponent controls and negates its effects until the end of the turn. So it's an imperm the turn it's summoned. You can detach a material for this card. For the rest of the turn, all Xyz monsters you control will gain 800 attack. So if you have just Jabreen detached to 800, and then you special summon Asophiel, Asophiel still gets the boost. It's Xyz monsters for the rest of the turn. It is very easy to OTK in this deck, which kind of makes me think maybe like you play a going second type build. But I feel like you need to set up rather than just try and OTK. I'm going to go over it because I played it, but I didn't have the 3 Spenter, sorry, I'm used to calling it Spoon. I didn't have the 3 Spoons, so I was just playing 3 Zorua, and I can't remember what I sided instead. I think I sided Dark Ruler no more. But this is what I was kind of thinking. However, I don't want to spend the money on Spoon, because I'm probably going to be taking up the Magister stuff anyway. But you revolve it around the Conflagrant Calamity, for especially like game 3. If you can just set this up and shut your opponent out, you win. So, you don't use Iwis, you don't use Vaphram, and you don't use Ninururu. You only use Artemis, and you only use Artemis and Zorua. So you discard Spoon, add the Zorua, normal the Zorua, summon back Spoon, make Calamity. You put the Artemis underneath the Zorua to get back the Spoon. Use Artemis effect to search for the Spoon, so you've got it for next turn. Which is why you could probably get away with playing just 1 of these, maybe 2. You summon the Zorua, use the Zoro effect to put either Fusion, Synchro, or Xyz underneath, or if your opponent's playing Link, then you don't get the search with Artemis, you put the Artemis underneath, and you can banish Spoon to equip another one, which is why I think Spoon is great. So if you're coming up against, like Branded, for instance, you could put Vathram under the Zoroa, get the Spoon, and then put Artemis and Iwis underneath. We are also playing Ash in the side, as mentioned, take it out for Purge, Harpies for spell trap removal. Evenly's great, Evenly works. You can play Gozen, because most of your things are light. And we can also get away with playing There Can Be Only One. Now, because you've got Fairies, Fiend, Spellcaster, Warriors, Fairy. So you can get away with There Can Be Only One. So, as mentioned, that's kind of changes I think I'd go over. But if you guys think of any other changes or any other ways we can play the deck, please let me know. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.